At 0612 local time, a Ukrainian MiG-29 pilot initiated a mission of extreme peril, a low-altitude strike on a strategic bridge within the world's most drone-saturated airspace. This sortie was poised to unveil a novel Russian weapon, potentially reshaping global air combat doctrine. Intelligence had designated the flight corridor as survivable. This assessment proved critically flawed. Traveling at approximately 900 kilometers per hour, the MiG-29 maintained an exceptionally low altitude, blurring the terrain beneath. This initial leg traversed friendly territory before entering the gray zone, an area of fluid control. The designated 35-kilometer path to the release point involved 15 minutes of low-level flight through purportedly deconflicted airspace. However, the environment was dense with unmanned aerial systems. Reconnaissance drones, both Ukrainian and Russian, operated between 100 and 300 meters. Below, at 20 to 50 meters, FPV attack drones from both sides prosecuted an incessant robotic conflict. The MiG-29 threaded a precarious 50-meter corridor, temporarily clear of friendly traffic and ostensibly free of significant enemy presence. Abruptly, the launch warning system emitted a sharp, singular tone, distinct from radar pulses or SAM locks, indicating active missile guidance. Instinctively, the pilot initiated a steep climb, deploying flares. The MiG rapidly ascended from 50 meters to 300 meters, sacrificing concealment for evasion. The infrared-guided R-60 missile was successfully diverted. However, this maneuver exposed the aircraft, and the radar warning receiver immediately registered new threats: a Buk battery south and S-300 east. Moments later, two delta-wing Giran-2 drones, approximately 3.5 meters in span, appeared 3 kilometers ahead, loitering and turning. Since December, these platforms had been adapted to carry R-60 air-to-air missiles, transforming surveillance assets into dedicated low-altitude interceptors. The initial missile's unannounced launch was attributable to the R-60's infrared guidance, bypassing radar warning detection. The Giran-2's vector indicated imminent engagement. Upon missile detection, the MiG-29 pilot initiated an aggressive defensive maneuver, executing a sharp roll and diving hard while deploying a barrage of flares. At an altitude of 200 meters, the aircraft remained vulnerable. The Buk radar system continued to track, generating a firing solution. Prolonged exposure at this height risked an imminent surface-to-air missile launch. Concurrently, the two Giran-2 drones, positioned above, presented a direct threat to the MiG's engines should further descent occur. A second infrared signature registered, indicating another R-60 missile launch. The pilot executed a rapid, aggressive dive, afterburners at maximum thrust, deploying a continuous stream of flares. The R-60s, a first-generation infrared-guided weapon, exhibited limited tracking sophistication and were susceptible to countermeasures. The MiG-29 stabilized at an extremely low altitude of 40 meters, where terrain features became visually distinct. The radar warning receiver confirmed the Buk radar remained active, but had not launched. By exploiting terrain masking, descending below the radar horizon, the aircraft momentarily evaded the Buk's engagement envelope. Both R-60 missiles, drawn by the intense heat signatures, detonated harmlessly among the deployed flares. With their missile payloads expended, the Giran-2 drones ceased direct engagement, maintaining a surveillance orbit. Their telemetry relay, however, provided the MiG's precise location to subsequent, more formidable assets. The evasion maneuver, while successful, critically disoriented the aircraft, pushing it significantly north of the pre-planned flight corridor into non-deconflicted airspace. Communications with ground control fragmented, delivering only partial instructions amidst an operational environment described as a marathon underwater. With the release point still 22 kilometers to the east, the mission remained active, necessitating immediate reorientation through an unmonitored sector. As the MiG-29 accelerated eastward, a formidable array of FPV drones, estimated 200 meters ahead, materialized directly within its flight path. At 900 kilometers per hour, the closure rate was 250 meters per second, rendering evasive action impossible. These small, high-speed projectiles, whether Russian strike assets or Ukrainian interceptors, represented an indiscriminate threat. The pilot's instruments, including the NO-19 radar and infrared search and track systems, proved ineffective against objects with minimal radar cross-section or low heat signatures. This sector, known as Pokrovsk, was experiencing unprecedented drone saturation, with some estimates suggesting 20 FPVs per mile of frontage on a typical day, a density now exacerbated to extreme levels. The only viable sensors were the pilot's visual acuity, which was insufficient at these velocities. A new radio transmission directed the aircraft to Vector 090, heavy activity above 60 meters, stay below 50, prompting an immediate descent to 45 meters. At this extreme low altitude, the emergent threat of fiber optic cables, trailed by some FPVs, presented an insidious danger. A single cable ingested into an engine intake could cause catastrophic failure. Further reports confirmed Ukrainian interceptors were also active, contributing to the chaotic, contested airspace. Ground control's data, rapidly outdated by the aircraft's speed, offered increasingly irrelevant guidance. Visual confirmation indicated a dense cluster of unmanned aerial systems, specifically FPV drones, converging on the MiG-29. This immediate and overwhelming threat at low altitude prompted the pilot to initiate an aggressive ascent. Engaging full afterburner, the aircraft rapidly climbed, exchanging the immediate danger of drone collision for increased exposure to surface-to-air missile systems. As the MiG-29 surpassed 500 meters, a Russian Buk M3 radar system immediately acquired the aircraft, its fire dome tracking radar establishing a lock and commencing a firing solution calculation. The pilot was now executing a high-angle toss bombing maneuver, a tactic developed during the Cold War for delivering gravity bombs without direct overflight. This technique, relying on a steep climb, weapon release at apex, and subsequent evasive dive, was historically practiced in uncontested airspace. In this instance, however, it was performed under active radar lock and within a drone-saturated zone, a scenario unprecedented in military aviation. With the Buk system nearing a launch solution, the pilot released the two AASM munitions at 4,000 meters. Immediately, the aircraft executed an aggressive split-S maneuver, trading altitude for speed. Concurrently, the bomb's rocket motors ignited, accelerating them towards the target. The aircraft's radar warning receiver, RWR, immediately registered the launch of a 9M317M surface-to-air missile from the southern sector, achieving speeds exceeding Mach 4. With the pilot focused on terrain-following maneuvers, visual acquisition of the inbound threat was impossible. The objective was to exploit terrain masking, positioning the aircraft below the radar horizon to sever the guidance link. The 9M317M, a semi-active homing weapon, relies on continuous radar illumination from the ground-based fire dome system. Breaking this illumination was critical. The tactical parameters were unforgiving. Calculations indicated a missile closure rate of 400 meters per second, with approximately 8 kilometers separating the missile from its target. This allotted a narrow window of 6 to 7 seconds before impact, requiring the aircraft to achieve terrain masking altitude within 5 to 6 seconds. A margin of mere seconds existed for successful evasion. The pilot maintained the aggressive dive profile, rapidly descending from 500 meters, the airframe experiencing significant buffeting as it neared its structural limits. At 1,000 meters, ground features, individual trees and structures, became sharply defined. At an altitude of 600 meters, the pilot initiated a high-G pull-out maneuver. Extreme G-forces induced momentary visual impairment, yet sustained adherence to the maneuver was paramount. Premature leveling would have sustained radar lock. At 200 meters, the aircraft stabilized, accelerating westward at maximum dry thrust. The RWR indicated the fire dome radar actively searching, then abruptly ceased its illumination. The 9M317M seeker had lost its target lock a mere 3 seconds prior to predicted impact, its guidance computer initiating a last-ditch climb. The missile's warhead detonated at an altitude of 300 meters, scattering fragments across the Ukrainian countryside. The pilot initiated his westward return, re-entering the drone-saturated airspace at 40 meters, a trajectory dictated by persistent threats. 15 kilometers astern, two French AASM Hammer munitions were in their terminal phase. Their solid rocket motors, having propelled them to Mach 0.8, guided them along a ballistic arc toward the designated bridge. These weapons integrated GPS, ring laser gyroscopes, and active control surfaces for precision. However, Russian R-330 Zetel systems severely jammed satellite navigation, rendering conventional GPS guidance unreliable. This electronic warfare caused significant positional errors for precision munitions. Detecting degradation, the ASM's internal guidance transitioned to its inertial navigation system, INS. Leveraging ring laser gyroscopes, the INS maintained trajectory based purely on physics, independent of external signals. While GPS offered sub-meter accuracy, INS alone reduced precision to approximately 10 meters, making a direct hit a 50-50 probability. Concurrently, the MiG-29 navigated chaotic airspace. FPV drones, both belligerent and allied, swarmed indiscriminately. At 900 kilometers per hour, visual drone contacts allowed minimal reaction time. Ground control communications remained intermittent. The pilot, conserving fuel and avoiding higher altitudes, maintained low-level, high-speed egress. His radio intermittently relayed munitions updates. Impact 30 seconds. Track nominal. A close-range drone necessitated a micro-correction. As drone density thinned and jamming weakened, the final transmission confirmed. Roadrunner 24. Impact imminent. Stand by for BDA. 5 seconds. At 0617, the MiG-29, having completed its high-stakes delivery, transited back into Ukrainian-controlled airspace. The pilot, now 20 kilometers west of the target area and maintaining a speed of 800 kilometers per hour, was beyond visual range of the strike. Despite a critical fuel state indicated by amber warnings, the mission's culmination was confirmed via radio. An immediate transmission relayed. Impact. Impact. Approximately 15 kilometers astern of the departing aircraft, two AASM Hammer munitions achieved their objective. They struck the eastern span of the Pekrossk Bridge with a documented interval of less than half a second. The initial munition perforated an estimated 18 inches of reinforced concrete before detonation, critically compromising the structural integrity. The subsequent munition then impacted the already destabilized section, ensuring complete structural failure. This strategic infrastructure, which had served as a critical assembly and logistics point for Russian forces during 3 weeks of sustained offensive operations, collapsed into the frozen river below, disintegrating into a large volume of concrete and steel debris. The successful interdiction effectively severed a key logistical artery.